Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Star Trek Sunday. Sadly, I'm here on my own today as Keira is away for 2 weeks doing some filming. We wish her all the best, I'm certain. And even though she's only been co-host for 1 week, obviously guest prior to that, she is still missed. Thank you very much, Ed. This is actually one of my least favourite uniforms. In fact, mainly because it doesn't fit terribly well. But also I need to do some adjustments to it to do the, you've got the bit that sort of it's not quite right, so it's only right when it's up. So I do need to make some. Now I've messed it all up. There we go. So I do need to make some adjustments to it. But thank you very, very much. More uniforms in future episodes. And in fact, here we are. This is episode 7 of Star Trek Sunday. Very, very exciting. Can't believe I've been doing this for 7 weeks now. That's quite shocking. And of course, very, very glad to have all of you along with me. So, what do we have in Keira's absence this week? We have a review of the Enterprise episode Dear Doctor, which is why I'm sat on the Enterprise bridge. The Enterprise. But NX-01. What's shocking is that this is the 7th episode, Matt. Which I just, it's hard to believe it's been 7 weeks of doing this now. Absolutely, so much fun. It's really, really flown by. But yeah, so glad to see you along, Matt, as well. So this week, as well as a review of Dear Doctor, I will be doing a bit of a deep dive into the Prime Directive as suggested by Usher. Now, I'm going to hold up my hands completely here. I wasn't able to spend as much time preparing for today's episode as I normally wouldn't, certainly as much as I would have liked. So some of that may be a little bit on the fly as we go. But hopefully, if you can think of any Prime Directive questions to fire at me, we can see if we can find out the answers together, if I don't already know. But I'm sure we can have a lively debate regardless. I will be doing an unboxing of one of my Eaglemoss starships. This week it's from the Discovery collection, which is coming to a close as it's been incorporated into the Star Trek Universe line. So this is the second from final of the Discovery ships. Last week you may notice I did the first of the Star Trek Universe. It's because I don't want to just do Discovery every week. It's I'm trying to sort of mix it up a little bit as much as I can. That might not be possible down the line, but we will see, especially as they're merging them. But yes, this will be a Section 31 ship, the Hu Yi class. Hi Paul, great to see you. Thanks for dropping in. And of course, I will be doing the latest in Star Trek news from the Trekverse. But let's kick off with a review of the Enterprise episode Dear Doctor. This is actually, despite being a Series 1, so it was the 13th episode of Series 1. It was launched on 23rd of January 2002. Series 1, obviously, like pretty much every single first series of Star Trek apart from Lower Decks, it got panned, and in some cases I can understand why. But Dear Doctor remains one of my favourite episodes, and I chose this as an episode to review because of the Prime Directive relevance in this episode. Now the Prime Directive in Enterprise isn't in place yet. Thank you very much, Paul. Wow, that's 2 comments about today's uniform. So yeah, this is a little side note. I'm not wearing them at the moment, but this is one of the very, very few uniforms where I actually have the trousers for it as well. Most uniforms just wear a pair of black trousers I can get away with it, or a pair of sort of black leggings if needs be. But yeah, so this is one of the very, very few that I've actually got the whole thing, because they got the red stripe down. So, like I said, I'm not wearing this. I won't stand up. Nobody needs to see that. Thank you very much, though, Paul. Suit you, sir. Oh, suit you. Yes. So, dear Doctor. So it's pre the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive is not in place during Enterprise, but it shows the consequences or the potential consequences and the moral dilemma of the Prime Directive really, really clearly. So the episode is the Enterprise has come across a spacefaring vessel, not a warp vessel. So this is a pre-warp society, but they have come across a spacefaring vessel and found some rather poorly crew members inside. They find out that in fact these aliens are from a race that has this massive epidemic going on. I mean, quite relevant to obviously the pandemic at the moment that we're facing, but sort of 1 in 3 of their species has this illness that is fatal, and they're desperate, absolutely desperate for a cure. So of course, the Enterprise and Captain Archer sort of fly in, and along with Dr. Phlox, flies in to assist where they possibly can. And they discover, quite to their amazement, that there are 2 sentient humanoid species living side by side on this planet, both native to the planet, which is quite rare in of itself. Long story short, they discover that in fact this illness is a natural result of evolution on the planet, with this secondary humanoid species sort of becoming more and more dominant. And although they develop a cure, Archer has to decide whether or not he's going to give them this cure and interfere with their society and adjust the natural development of their society, much to the detriment of this secondary species, the Menk as they are known. And it's a really good sort of moral compass episode, because morally you can see both sides of the story. It's ethics versus compassion when the two don't gel. So really, really, really good for that. I mean, that's not the only reason why I love it. I also love it because in the episode we find out a lot more about the Denobulan people and how they live. Dr. Phlox remains one of my favourite characters. It's not by accident that the captain of the Livingston is a Denobulan. On our Star Trek adventures on a Wednesday, every second Wednesday. So yeah, I do like the Denobulan, and I like the Denobulan culture and the way they're not just automatically the same sort of culture as humans or a variation. They are quite alien in many, many respects, and I do really like that about them. So we get to find out a lot more about that. We also have Dr. Flux's interesting relationship with the lady who played Crewman Cutler. I mean, it always makes me a little bit sad whenever I see it, because she died at a very young age. And in fact, in this episode, she talks about the heart as a pulmonary system, but she has this little sort of banter with Phlox about the heart being the seat of all emotion. She actually died of a heart attack, so there you go. It's a bit of sad trivia for you there. I did like her as a very, very capable actor as well. She was. So that was quite sad. But yeah, so any episode with her is a treat. Any episode that focuses, and it's very much a Phlox episode. In fact, they use a narrative structure of Dr. Phlox writing a letter to his colleague, Dr. Lucas, who we later get to see in subsequent series, but played by a different actor by that point. But Yeah, we so it's done in a very narrative structure where he's telling the story over the top of a lot of the action in the form of this letter. Not entirely dissimilar to In the Pale Moonlight, one of my favourite, of course, episodes of excuse me, of Deep Space Nine, which we've discussed in the past. Excuse me. Oh, a little bit of a cough there. Probably need a bit of water rather than coughing. Okay. So this is the episode where we get to see for the first time movie night on board the Enterprise NX-01. I mean, they mention movie night, I think, in other episodes, but this is the first time we actually get to see people watching it. And the film that is being shown is the 1943 movie For Whom the Bell Tolls. There you go, a little bit of trivia for you. In relation to the Prime Directive, though, there's one bit that kind of really ties it in very nicely with the Prime Directive. Although Scott Bakula, now I worship Scott Bakula as an actor. I think he's absolutely amazing, and he was absolutely brilliant as Archer. But I do think on this particular line, he was a bit ham-fisted with the delivery, and a little bit on the heavy-handed side for my taste. But the line he delivered was, "Someday my people are going to come up with some sort of a doctrine, something that tells us what we can and can't do out here and shouldn't do. But until somebody tells me that they've drafted that directive, I'm going to have to remind myself every day that we didn't come out here to play God." Now, I mean, his delivery was, "Until somebody tells me they've drafted that directive." So that was a bit, a bit heavy-handed for me. I didn't think it was necessary. I think most Star Trek fans would have got the reference. But there we go. But that kind of summarises what the Prime Directive is about. It's about not playing God. It's about not adjusting the natural development of other species. But there we are, which actually leads us very, very nicely in to our discussion. But yes, Dear Doctor, like I say, Series 1, Episode 13. If you've not seen it, I mean, do go and watch it. I think it is a tremendous episode for so many reasons. So, our discussion on the Prime Directive then. So, I'm going to ask straight away, does anyone have any questions about the Prime Directive? God, I sound like I'm doing a lecture here. Does anyone have any questions? No. But if you have any questions about the Prime Directive, do fire them into the Twitch chat. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of them. Do you think the Prime Directive is a good idea or a bad idea? There has certainly been some interesting debates within Star Trek itself on that one. In fact, there was a really nice little moment in one of the short treks, Discovery short treks, which I've mentioned before, between Spock and Number One on board the Enterprise, when he first comes on board the Enterprise, and he asked Number One if she feels that, logically, has it ever occurred to her that the Prime Directive is inherently immoral and unfair, and that she basically shuts him down very quickly on it. It's really nice little short trek, that one, if you get the chance to see it. In fact, all the short treks are. Some are better than others, but they're all pretty good. So the Prime Directive, also known as Starfleet General Order 1, is considered to be the highest possible order. The Prime Directive, it is the directive that overrides any other directive, with two exceptions. There is the Omega directive, where if an Omega particle is discovered, then all other directives are thrown out the window and it needs to be shut down and destroyed, as we saw in Voyager. That was brought in much later. But also, General Order 24 does say that you can dismiss the Prime Directive if the instruction is to basically wipe out life on a planet. So there you go. I mean, a bit of a strange one, that one, but one you can go into. The intention of the Prime Directive, as I say, it's about not playing God. It's about not interfering with the natural evolution of a planet. It's an ethical principle rather than a logical one, or a mechanical one. And it is all, like I say, about non-interference, not just with other civilizations, but with other cultures as well. Now, it didn't come into force until after 2160. We know it's not in force during Enterprise, but we know it is in force by the time of the original series. And came into force. There is a mention of this in the original series when the ship, the USS Horizon, left some books on a planet that contaminated their culture. We've had comments. So the potential for this is from Ed. The potential for advanced technologies to be used by individuals to set themselves up as gods over more primitive cultures does need addressing and limiting if possible. Yes, Ardra of Ventaxia. Yes, I know who Ardra is. Yes, definitely from the Next Generation. And let's not forget False Prophets, the Voyager episode as well, with the Ferengi. So the one of the issues with the Prime Directive is it's a bit too open for interpretation. I personally think it's too open, or it's been shown to be too open for interpretation. The adherence to it, the way in which different Starfleet captains have interpreted it, not just Starfleet, but Federation citizens in general, have interpreted it, has varied somewhat greatly. I think, if we're perfectly honest, I think for the purposes of writing an interesting episode, they have sort of either leaned heavily on it or backed away from it, and what have you, or there's been some mention of it and then it's been dismissed. But yeah, I think if you are going to have a principle like it needs to be really strictly adhered to. I'm very firm on that. But like I said, it is canon that different captains will interpret it in different ways. There are so many examples of it being broken that I was going to generate a list, but it was just far too extensive. So there was a captain in the original series who similarly set himself up as a planetary overlord using yes. Now I was reading a thing about that. Yes. I mean, there's been a couple of occasions of similar sorts of things. Oh gosh, this is where me being less prepared than I would have preferred. Gosh. But yes, I I was thinking of I was thinking of the Return of the Archons there with Landru. But that doesn't apply. But yes, it has happened. There was the episode. Yes, the Space Nazi planet where the historian, wanted to sort of basically recreate the German Empire to help the culture that he was supposed to be observing. Yes, I mean there are, like I say, many examples of it. And the Prime Directive, I mean, it comes up so often in Star Trek. It is such a fundamental part of it. To give you the full list in chronological order, there are 3 episodes of Enterprise where it is relevant, 3 episodes of Discovery to date, 14 episodes of the original series, and when you think they only had 3 seasons, that's quite a lot. Only 16 episodes of The Next Generation, which quite surprised me. 9 episodes of Deep Space Nine. That one was less surprising because it's not set aboard a Federation station. 23 episodes of Voyager, which excuse me, I got a bit of a cough today. 23 episodes of Voyager, which did surprise me when I first heard that, because I thought, wow, that's a lot. But actually, it kind of makes sense because Voyager is operating as a Federation vessel, as a Starfleet vessel. But they are surrounded by other, everyone they interact with, they've got to consider the Prime Directive. So the fact it came up 23 times throughout Voyager is less surprising when you think about it from that point of view. The Mintarkans, yes. Yeah, well, that was accidental, of course. Yeah, it was accidental that they'd revealed themselves. So I would say Prime Directive is more about how it is dealt with than whether or not they are revealed. But it calls into question, I mean, the Mintarkmon episode of The Next Generation calls into question the methodology of observing a developing culture by physically being there. I mean, with surveillance satellites and what have you. Yes, it was definitely an accident. Definitely, yeah, an accident. But yeah, I mean, why not use surveillance satellites to do your monitoring? That way you're running the far lower risk. They use the same sort of duck blind method in the movie. Oh gosh, not Nemesis. Her Insurrection. Which, yeah, just kind of. Why would you? Yes. I agree, Matt. I mean, not that any. I mean, even Star Trek 5 is still a fun film because it's Star Trek, but yeah, some of them are pretty bad. But yes, it's a difficult one. But do you know what? I'm going to quote Picard now from. I mean, we're talking about terrible film, from one of my least favourite episodes. But there is an excellent speech by Picard after he breaches the Prime Directive, and he doesn't do so easily, with, of course, the Edo in the episode Next Generation episode Justice, when they decide to beam Being 5 Light. Now that wasn't cultural contamination because the Cardassians were a space warp capable species. Which is one of the more sometimes it applies, sometimes it doesn't. But there you go. But yes, in Picard's speech to the Edo god when he removes Wesley rather than allowing him to be killed, he says, There can be no justice so long as laws are absolute. Even life itself is an exercise in exceptions. And yeah, I think every single law, every single principle, directive, order must be queried and questioned and looked at in its own context. I think that is absolutely fair. There are occasions when you would breach the Prime Directive. Totally. It's got to be looked at under its own circumstances. However, not done lightly, because you could be creating more problems for yourself. Even by saving a species. They may turn out to be the next lot of space Nazis. Who knows? Who knows what other civilizations they will be suppressing, and so on and so forth. But yeah, the Prime Directive is a fascinating subject. So there we go. Right, so on to this week's unboxing. So let me move us over. Here we are. Like I say, this is the Star Trek Discovery Collection from Eaglemoss, the Section 31 Hu Yi class. I get a bit fed up with Eaglemoss. They did so many as part of the Discovery Collection, so many Section 31 ships, and I don't know why. I know they were shown on screen, and I know, but there's many ships that aren't shown on screen that they've never done, that people are crying out for, like the Ferengi shuttle. But for some reason they've done plenty of Section 31 ships. And this is another one. This is a 4 nacelle medium-sized vessel. Now, this is as much information as I was able to pull off the internet about this particular ship, because it was one of dozens of different types of Section 31 ships. I love Discovery, but the way they've dealt with Section 31 and brought them sort of out into the open far more is something I'm not keen on at all. I think it was in preparation for the series they were hoping to do, but we're probably not going to get there. But there we go. Well, yes, Paul, and in fact, that's a very relevant point, because the Vulcans said that they did not come and visit until they knew we were warp capable, because the Vulcans did operate their own version of the Prime Directive. Absolutely. Now, if you listen to one of my podcasts, Aliens Explored, in reality we might have been visited by aliens, but there you go. If you're interested in that, I know you might be, I believe, Paul, but there we go. aliensexplored.com. Right, it's a bit of cross promotion there. So the Hu Yi class, we have the new size binder. I managed to get some more Discovery binders, so I've got somewhere for that. As ever, it gives you some basic specifications, who it's affiliated to, its size, its class, closely related design of the Miranda class. Okay, that's a bit gives you some episode information, some general drawings, talk about the general battle with Section 31. Yeah, as I suspected, there's very little information about it, and some drawings of other ships, which they've had to pad out the magazine. So there you go. Because there's so many of these Section 31 ships, totally unnecessary. Okay, it is. Do you know what? Right, look at the size of the box. Look at the size of the ship. That's unnecessary. It's not much bigger than the standard collection, so I'm quite disappointed with that. The main part appears to be die-cast, with plastic nacelles and pylons. Well, I don't know if will catch this, but oh yes, you got clear plastic actually in the nacelles. That's quite nice. And that'll look nice with a bit of light behind it. Yeah, it's okay. There's a lot of detail on it. Quite like that. Interesting sort of deflector. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but that's the deflector. So that's the top with the bridge at the top. You can see there. Yeah, I'm not overly. I'm not too impressed by the Section 31 ships, but there we go. Yeah, it's part of the collection. It'll sit there with the rest of them. I have far too many shelves taken up by Section 31 ships, though, so I kind of feel the need to call it a day on those. But there we go. So there'll be another unboxing next week, and next week I'll be doing a Star Trek Online ship, so don't miss that one. Oh, interesting question, Paul. Why have the Vulcans never set up an empire? Probably because they feel that conquest is not logical. It's unnecessary. Yeah. Why would they? What have they got to gain by... You know, they're also pacifists as well. Let's not forget. As a society. So an empire building kind of pacifism don't tend to go well together. But it's a good question. It is a good question. So we are on to... I'm whizzing through today's episode. Today is probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode than normal. Yes, they absolutely... I mean, colonies are different, very different to setting up an empire. So we've got 3 pieces of news from the Trekverse this week. The first one is for Picard. Now, I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that we are going into award season, and indeed Hanelle Culpepper, who is director for Picard, she directed Remembrance. She has won the Image award for outstanding directing in a drama series. Like I say, that's for Star Trek Picard, the episode Remembrance. Built out some really strong competition from Cheryl Dunye for Lovecraft Country, Misha Green, also Lovecraft Country, Nzinga Stewart, Little Fires Everywhere, which I've not heard of. It's on Hulu, so there we go. And Steve McQueen for Small Axe, which is on Amazon. But yeah, so there we go. Outstanding directing in a drama series for Star Trek Picard. Quite right too. Well done to Hanelle Culpepper. We have some developments on the Voyager documentary. So we mentioned last week, Keira in fact mentioned last week that they'd got to the point they'd just announced a couple more stretch goals the week before, and it was very, very exciting, and you know what we can expect from that. Well, they've absolutely smashed those goals already within a couple of days. They absolutely blitzed them. They have now reached stretch goal number 9 with over $900,000. Oh, do you know what, Paul? So true story this. When I heard that there was going to be a new Star Trek series like Discovery, when Discovery was announced, literally within 5 minutes of it being announced, I was on the phone to my agent saying, look, get me in the room. Sadly it didn't happen, but oh yes, I would absolutely I would absolutely love that. Yes, an RPG. Well, yes. Yes, I don't think I'd be able to play Captain Keira. But yeah, well, I'm sure I could come up with some character for our adventures. Definitely. Bit of LARPing. Yes, Star Trek LARPing. That would be absolutely amazing. Yes, so they've hit stretch goal now. The only stretch goal left now is stretch goal 10, which happens when they achieve $1 million, which is absolutely incredible. They're right on target for it, and I very much expect that they will hit that. And stretch goal 10, we will get exclusive, never before seen Voyager surprise. No clues as to what that's about as yet. Now, the other bit of news as well for the Voyager documentary, it's such a shame Keira's not here to talk about it. We have now been given the name of the documentary. It is to be called To the Journey, which, for those of you who have seen Voyager, of course, is the toast given at the end of the series. When they get back to the journey. The other piece of news is regarding Leonard Nimoy, who a couple of days ago, it would have been his 90th birthday. And as we know, it was Leonard Nimoy Day on the 26th of March, as declared by the Mayor of Boston, which was, of course, Leonard Nimoy's hometown. Well, there are further tributes because the Boston Museum of Science are going to be unveiling a statue commemorating Leonard Nimoy. It's going to be the Vulcan salute, so the hand. It's going to be designed by David Phillips, or it's being designed by David Phillips, and it's going to be a 20-foot high illuminated stainless steel. So hand in the Vulcan salute. If you want to get involved with that, they are looking for donations to help make it. And you can go to mos.org/Nimoy. The Vulcan salute, I don't know if you're aware, was basically, it was Leonard Nimoy who came up with it as part of the Judaism. So there is a, forgive me if I get it wrong, but in Judaism there is a symbol that you do that with your hands. So he actually took it from that, as I understand it. I don't know much about Judaism. I'm going to hold up my hand and say, but yeah, that's where he got it from, as I understand it. So quite interesting. We've come to an end. It's, like I said, a shorter episode than normal, and I'm going to completely take responsibility for that myself, for being not as prepared as I would have liked. So we'll try and avoid that for next time. And speaking of next time, there will, of course, be more updates, more news from the Trekverse. Like I said earlier, I'll be doing an unboxing of a Star Trek Online ship, and I'll be doing a deep dive. Now, this one was suggested by Ed, one of my favourite topics. We'll be doing a deep dive onto the changing face of the Klingons, so the way that they've appeared in different aspects of Star Trek. And connected with that, as ever, I'm open to suggestions as to what to review. Like, is there a particular when the Vulcans make first contact, wonder what they'll think of the statue. Indeed. Well, hopefully they'll feel at home, Paul. Yes, so I'm open to suggestions as to what episode to review. Bear in mind, we did do Trials and Tribulations not long ago, which would have been a good one, and of course I've done an Enterprise episode this week, otherwise we'd be looking at that. So my suggestion is that I review the motion picture, the movie, because this was the first time we got to see Klingons with ridges and prosthetics rather than just being painted. So that's my thinking of what to review for next week. But if you have any other suggestions at all, do please jump in the Discord, links below, and express yourself. I do want to hear from each and every one of you. Something else, I'm going to shout out for 2 more bits of help I need in making this show from you all. For one thing, topics of conversation. Like I say, this week was suggested by Usher about the Prime Directive. So thank you for that. And next week's suggested by Ed. I have something for the week after. But anything else that you would like me to deep dive on, discuss, Keira will be back week after next. So we can sort of go into things between us. Do please get on the Discord and tell me what you want us to talk about. The other thing as well, obviously there's a few segments that we do. There's the review, the general discussion, the unboxing, and the news. Are there any other segments that you would like added to this show? I'd make suggestions, but I can't think of anything. This is exactly why I'm asking, you see. So yeah, is there any other segments you want to see added? I don't know. Alien baddies. Oh, as a topic of discussion, or alien baddie of the week. Which are you thinking there, Paul? Because that's not a bad idea at all. Either way. But yeah, alien baddies, I'll add that. Star Trek gaming through the decades, and fantastic idea there. Okay, I'll definitely do an episode on Star Trek gaming. Absolutely. Analog and digital, yeah. Oh, totally. Well, in fact, that could even be 2 separate episodes. Tabletop gaming versus, and then onto other things. Definitely. Those are cracking topics. So thanks for proposing those. I'll add those to the list, and anything else, like I say, do shove that in the Discord. Absolutely brilliant. And like I say, any other segments as well that you would like to see and hear about from this show, because this is your show. As Alien Baddies as a topic of discussion. Gotcha. No problem. I will add that to the list, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, 20th anniversary. I know you've sent me a link to it. Thank you, Ed. Do you know what my go-to from around that era is Starfleet Command? Because I just absolutely love the Starship combat element of it. In fact, I do revisit that from time to time. I got the gold edition with Wrath of Khan, absolutely. There are some brilliant ones out there, so we'll be going into those. Lovely. Well, this has been fun as like I say, a bit shorter than normal, but fun as ever. So, in the meantime, it'll be just me again next week. Keira will be back the week after. There's so many variants and so many different games out there. That's going to be quite a list. Grace is very, very lucky, and for so many different reasons as well. So in the meantime, until next week, don't forget you can join me on Wednesday when I will be doing another Choose Your Own Adventure book. This time I will be doing one from the Star Trek II Wrath of Khan Distress Call. So there are 2 Which Way books which I've done in the past ones. This one is a plot your own adventure story. Based on the Wrath of Khan Distress Call. So join me on Wednesday. Let's see if we can manage to survive and get through it, because I will need your help to make the decisions of what you are going to do to help the Enterprise. So, in the meantime, take care, everyone, and keep on trekking. Bye.